I think for the purposes of time, we'll go ahead and get started if we can. So before we approve the minutes, I'd like to go over the agenda. Maybe we'll get a couple more people that will come in that are voting members. Let's see what we got here. We got Austin's here.
What do we have a vote on?
Julie is here. Is Mary Aaron coming? Does anybody know?
Oh,
Mary
Mary Erin? I don't know.
Okay.
I remember an email from her, saying that she was on vacation, but I don't remember which meeting it was.
I think it was the
yeah.
benefits committee.
I thought that was
she-
last
Okay.
week, yeah.
Anyway, so we got Julie is here, and Danny is obviously here as the vice chair, and Rod can be a voting member in Mary Aaron's place if that's okay with everybody else. Carol is here, and Cha was in the office.
We saw her and she's
Okay.
got a place suit here.
Okay.
Has to come.
Yeah.
So what we want to try to do today, and it won't necessarily be in this order because we're still trying to get some documents in here in a second.
Denise is gonna take Gary Potts' place.
Okay, so Denise, the minutes will reflect that Denise will be representing Gary in CFT.
That way you have a quorum.
Sure. So what we want to do, we're going to do a update on the May revision, and I'm actually going to use a PowerPoint, and I'm going to go through very quickly that I saw last week to kind of give us a quick overview. And then we're going to give BRAC a preview of a document that we are presenting to the executive committee on Monday in terms of where we are with the budget and some things that we're going to ask the executive committee people to consider as we move forward with the budget. But there'll be a lot of information in that, and Joe will be presenting that. Also, if we're going to talk about the benefits situation and where we are kind of with that right now. And we will see where that all takes us, and we'll go from there. So why don't we start with the approval of minutes for the Thursday, March 6, 2014 meeting. If our memory serves, we didn't have a quorum at the last meeting, and that's why we didn't vote on these. Does anybody care to make a motion? Okay.
I was there.
So would you care to make a motion?
I would like to motion that
Thank
we
you.
approve the minutes from that meeting.
Would someone like to second that?
Second.
Thank you, Rod. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
May I wasn't there.
Julie, Carol, and
Denise.
Denise, thank you. My sister's name is Denise. You think that would stick in my memory?
Must not like
I
her much.
apologize. Actually, I do like her. Most of the time. That's another story. We don't want to go there.
We don't wanna go there.
Okay, thank you. Now, the minutes of the April 24th meeting, do I hear a motion?
Move approval?
Second, thank you, Austin. Discussion? Joe, there's a spot for you up here.
Yeah, you have to sit over here,
That's
buddy.
right.
You got a name tag.
Exactly
Get over
right.
here.
A discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Dr. Robinson is abstaining. Thank you. Okay. At your seats is a PowerPoint that was presented by Scott Lay to the chief business officers at a conference last week. And I will tell you that the May Revise has been a little bit of a challenge because it's a good news, bad news document. The good news is that there's stability there, there's money there, not as much money in the 01 general fund area as there is in a lot of the other 03 categoricals, which we'll go through in detail today. But a lot of it is very much of a moving target on the basis of some negotiations between the governor and the Senate and the Assembly budget committees, going to conference either today or early next week, and then from there back to the governor. And the long and the short of it is that the governor is predicting this amount of income, the legislative analyst office is predicting this amount of income, And the governor is, at the moment, holding firm on this notion that he wants a rainy day fund. He wants to fund STRS, State Teachers Retirement System, to a greater degree than perhaps others were thinking he needs to fund that now going forward. He wants to pay down the wall of debt. Whereas the Senate and the Assembly, individual budget committees say, we don't need to do as much of that, we can do less of that. And so in the case of the community colleges, those two groups are wanting to contribute $246 million more to the community college system than the governor does right now. So when Joe presents his budget work that he's been working on, I'm going to tell you right up front that we are starting with the governor's May revised numbers, but we know that there will be some give between the governor and the two legislative bodies, and something maybe in the middle will come out of this. But we're starting from what we know for a fact at the moment, which is the May revised. The governor will likely, my opinion, trade off some things for his bullet train and trade off some things for this and trade off some things for that. So there'll be some give. We just don't know how much yet. So quickly, Dave, can you hit the first two light switches over
Well,
there?
quick question before you
Sure.
get going. We used to use the rule of thumb that PCC got 2%
And
of whatever money.
1.9 is what we're using now. Go the other way and go. There you go. Okay.
I wasn't sure which wire to cut.
That's good. All right, so if you guys turn around, I'm going to go through this. Again, this is Scott Lay's presentation. And that's Teresa Tenya, by the way. We looked in there.
Not Scott Lay.
Yeah, that's not Scott Lay. She's actually an incredibly bright woman and the vice president in charge of something or other at the league. But she's the real brains behind a lot of what they do up there. She's a great lady. All right, so I'm not going to go through all this, but his presentation was about the league, politics surrounding where we are right now, the budget and the equity piece, which is really what I want to spend some more time with. You've got the PowerPoint in front of you. These are things that the league is involved in right now, different things they do. He talks about there being two political states, and if you know Scott, you know that he really enjoys the whole thing about the legislature and handicapping the Democrats, Republicans, and what have you. You've got a lot of that in here. But here we get into the interesting stuff. The governor's budget, the May revised governor's budget, returns us to where we were in 8-9 in terms of actual general fund funding level. The governor's budget proposed a 3% enrollment growth, and in fact that was actually dropped down to 2.75%. And growth is also really the wrong term. We're still dealing with it with really restoration, restoring us to where we were as opposed to growing, but that's another thing we can talk about later. The COLA, which is really 0.85% and not 0.86%. And one of the things that the legislature, the two legislative bodies wants to do is increase the COLA to 1.7%, but currently it's at 0.86. $100 million for student success programs, $100 million for the student support system programs, or SSSP, focused on equity. So that's additional money. $175 million for scheduled maintenance and instructional equipment, which is really now 100 and what, Joe? 49? 199 million, and it's no longer instructional equipment. It is just maintenance. But that's something that is being worked on throughout. Elimination of deferrals, in other words, pay everybody down and break everybody whole. Adding some positions in the chancellor's office, and then the $87.5 million for instructional equipment and scheduled maintenance, and that's changing, and we'll talk about that. Now, in the May budget, and I just actually said a little bit of this, he went from the January budget to the May 2.75 enrollment growth. You can read it there, but that's kind of where he was. He went to 175 down to 148 for scheduled maintenance, pulled out instructional equipment. He eliminated all the deferrals which he had before. He added $50 million for economic and workforce development, student success, which is money that they're giving to CTE, but which will morph into non-credit in the years to come, we're told. He added $6 million for telecommunications and technology. And he left the chancellor's office. And remember, we get 1.9% of every one of those numbers up there, and Joe will run through that in a few minutes. STRS, he's proposing that the general proposal was to define a fix by 2015-16. You can read what's up there, but they wanted to get the 100% valuation by 2047. There's nothing mystical and magical about 2047. It's just the year they picked from an actuarial point of view. And then the liquidity would be 0% under the current projections. Share the burden on each of the three contributors, with the biggest on employers, which is what hits us. If you look at this chart and you see that in 13-14, we employer, we're at 8.25%. In 14-15, we've got to come up with another 1.25%. And you can see how the size of the increase that is needed in order to fully fund, at least in order to get us through 21-22. And you can see what a huge increase that's going to be by the time we get to that world. But it's a large increase every year anyway. And we'll talk more about that. And you can see the employee contributions are going up as well. But obviously not beyond 10.25, but they move up in a couple of years. You go from 8% to 10.25% of all of our salary, those of us that are in STIRS, which I'm not, by the way, but those of you who are in STIRS.
No. That amount for people that are employed after 2013 actually goes to a max, for the employees, goes to a max of 9.2 because they're under the new system.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but anyway, it doesn't matter.
All right. Well, that was interesting. Did you hear about that? Okay. I didn't hear that, but I was heard in Sacramento. But that's good to know. All right. So projected STIRS increases to the STIRS contributions by the community college districts, assuming 2% COLA, assuming 2% growth each year. And you can see that all 72 districts go from contributions of 28 million or to increase by 28 million. You can see the staggering increases over the next years and what that's going to mean to all of us in terms of just trying to fund the state teachers retirement system contributions. Okay, so what did the legislature say? The legislature said that they wanted to provide $246 million more because the LAO, Legislative Analyst's Office, is predicting much higher revenue than the governor is. They want all the May revised spending that was talked about, and they want to do the following things, as you can see there. So the legislature wants to be much more generous. So this was Scott's way of being funny, saying it's all sort of fantasy and whatever, because he really doesn't believe the governor is going to agree to much of what the legislature wants them to do. Now, this is interesting. It's hard to read on this, but you've got it in front of you. This shows the population shift by county through 2060. And you can see that some of the smaller counties and the like are going to be growing at a pretty significant clip. But if you look at LA County, which is kind of hard to see there, you'll see that our growth over the years is obviously definitely declining in a significant way. Does that mean a lot to PCC? I don't think it really does, because truthfully, we draw from everywhere and we've always done very well. But it just gives you a sense of overall population. What are the major policy issues that the system is dealing with right now? Accreditation continues to be a big one. One element of it is going to hit us in our pocketbook pretty solidly this year, and I'll talk about that. The notion of the system starting to offer baccalaureate degrees, with the first one being in the area of nursing, and probably others in CTE areas going forward. This notion of performance-based funding in some form or another, student success and the match associated with that, and how much we've got to contribute to help that. The notion of financial aid debit cards, facilities bond. That one, by the way, we got some good news in that one got through the Assembly and Senate committees. And again, that's another one that really has a shot at making the November 2014 ballot if the governor will sign it. If it does make the 2014 ballot, and if the voters approve it, then we get our 54 million. Is it, Ruben?
56.2.
56 million to replace the U building. Anyway, partial tax on or split roll, faculty obligation number equalization. Those are the major policies. Okay, student equity. This is interesting in terms of gender and the percentages. of the different types and how they're growing. I don't remember the green and the blue per se. When Reagan was our governor, the population, California community colleges, was 61% white. With President Obama, I'm sorry, when Reagan was our president, 61% white, and Obama was our president, we're now almost 70% that are non-white. So it shows what's happened in 33 years to the population, the people that we serve from an equity point of view. The demographic change since '92, you can see right there in front of you what we're looking at there. Shift happens, are we shifting accordingly? Our enrollment peaked in 9-10, and then we lost 600,000 students, which we're trying to bring them back. You can see the enrollment trend by system on that chart. I'm going through this quickly because we got more things to talk about, but I really wanted you to kind of get an idea. K-12, the number of graduates are 4% lower, predicted to be 4% lower in 19-20 than in 2009-10, and that's going to impact our ability to grow as well. And then you can see over the years the shift in the graduate rates and changes and where we're projected to go. We will restore, but our priorities and target populations are they the same as in 2009-10. Meanwhile, our colleges and regions will have different growth needs, and that's part of it, depending on who they're serving and what they're serving. And that's that chart again. How are we doing? 70.9% of our college-ready students complete within 6 years. That's the good news.
Complete what in 6 years?
The definition of completion at the moment is transfer, degree, or certificate. So that's what they're saying. The bad news is that 1 out of 4 students is college ready when they get to us. So there's a lot of work to do to get them up to that. The bad news is, of those that are not college ready, the 6-year success rate is 40.5%. And for the college ready students, the achievement gap for Black and Latino students is, what's it, plus or minus, was that?
Negative?
What are your stats people there, Julie?
I think that's an approximate,
Yeah, I think so, plus or minus approximately 5%.
but it could be a 3 to 5%,
Exactly,
or it could be a 5 to 7%.
Right.
So this could be nothing.
right, okay.
It's an artifact.
It's an artifact. For non-college ready students, the achievement gap for Black and Latino students is the artifact once again, but that's what they're saying.
But that next page is probably not an artifact.
Right. Yeah, this one here, you mean, yeah,
10%.
yep.
No matter what the,
Right, the deviation.
I can't speak right now, but yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. Only 1 in 4 students who take remedial math ever complete college level math. Remedial success is a challenge. 1 in 4 succeed in math, 1.5 in English, and 1.1 in ESL. So, you know, the achievement gap is persistent and pervasive every college, every year across the country. So we are part of everybody in that sense. But you can see the challenge that we have working with our population. We can change the system, building campus reflecting our communities. Okay, I'm done. So that just sort of gives you a kind of a flavor of where things are system-wise and budget-wise from a state perspective. At this point, Joe, do you want to do a brief benefits update, and then we'll get into the budget stuff?
Sure. So last Thursday, we had a joint BRAC and Benefits Committee meeting, and we asked BRAC to join the Benefits Committee meeting because of a phone call that the district received from our third-party administrator notifying us of our increases for our next policy year for our health benefits, dental benefits, and our vision is actually not changing. But for, excuse me, for the and we'll get into more detail a little later, but for the purpose of the benefits, we had a 13.6% increase in our Kaiser policy, which starts October 1st. We had a 7.5% increase for our Anthem HMO. And for the largest group that is covered here at the district, we had an 18% increase for Anthem PPO. So when we started to do the budget projections, we were anticipating at the most a 10% increase across the board. This caught everybody off guard. So we wanted to make sure everybody was aware of the increase. The total dollar amount right now for just the medical, an increase for next year is going to be just under $2.3 million. Our dental policy is still being negotiated, but we're thinking at the most it will be about 11%, which if I recall correctly is about $140,000, $150,000 a year. We think it'll come in around 7, maybe 8%, but just to budget appropriately, we're looking at 11%. So in total, the benefits are actually going to cost the district an additional just under $3.3 million, which was completely unexpected. So we had the joint committee meeting. We talked about some options for future years, looking at the policy, going back out for an RFP, looking at different options for the policy and what it covers, like a increased dollar amount for prescriptions, that kind of thing. And it could potentially offset the dollar amount that the district would have to foot for the bill. Okay?
So a couple of things to add to that. The experience rate of the district in terms of employees with major illnesses over 250,000, if I remember correctly, is about 38 or 39 employees who had issues, as I recall. Anthem started out at wanting a 27% increase, and between Keenan and the district, we got it down to 18 something. Kaiser started out wanting, was it 13 something?
The projection was 19 and change
Right.
percent, and we have as part of our policy a cap of 15%.
Right.
And then when Keenan got the policy, they caught a mistake that was made, so the actual increase is that 13.6.
5.
6 or 5, whatever it is.
You said 13.6.
So at
13.6%.
So at the bottom line to this one, I think, is that the benefits committee, working with Keenan and others, this coming year, nothing that will impact 14-15, but this coming year will spend the year talking about options. Because all of these are working condition items, and all of these things have got to be negotiated. We are now in contract discussions right now with the various unions and associations. I'm suggesting strongly that we put reopeners in there so we can talk about this at some point. But to the extent that everything stays the way it is in terms of the level of coverage, the level of deductibles, the level of co-pays, what have you, it's expensive, and it looks like it's gonna get that way. We asked Keenan to put together a 10-year, I think they were able to do like a 5 or 7 year comparison chart I remember seeing, and I'm sure you'll share that with the benefits committee at some point, but on average, every once in a while we get these spiky years like we're getting this year, but it's been around 8-9% increase on average, give or take, and we kind of see that. So we're gonna, we're on full disclosure, full everything mode, so everybody will see what it is that we see. And my hope is that the benefits committee, which is represented by all the groups at the table, both the shared governance groups and the labor representative groups, will be able to come to some agreement or some at least general sense, so that when and if we do anything, it will come reasonably well baked to the table by all the different groups. And Keenan is now at the table with us at every meeting, and will continue. These meetings are once a month, but there's nothing magic about that. They can be twice a month, they can be once a week for a while, they can be whatever they need to be until we figure all this out. Make sense? Yep. So that's kind of where we are with the benefits for now. Does anybody have any questions or comments they'd like to make about that? Yes, Carol.
It's been brought to my attention that many of the classified, their payout has been increased since January. What would usually be maybe $1.50 has gone up to $13 that they owe for a certain medical procedure or visit.
Okay.
Do you have any idea why this is happening across the board?
That's the first time I'm hearing it. If you want to refer those people to me so we can call and specifically about them. That's better than just asking the general question, because then we can point to something specific.
We've had two issues that I'm aware of. One was chiropractic, which we went through that, and then there was another issue which I don't remember the specifics of it, but generally, Keenan is very good about getting to Anthem or Kaiser or whoever it is and saying what has happened, and then they're relatively responsive to us answering the question. Unfortunately, the answers are usually they win, we lose, but at least they're answering the question. So if you can be specific, or as specific as you can, then I'm sure we can get an answer. Okay. All right, so let's move on to, I did a very quick C, and there's much more I can do on C, but you don't need to hear that. But the meat and potato is really kind of C and how the governor's May revise impacts the college. So Joe has worked on a couple of significant documents, and he's going to pass those out and speak to those, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so this first document, you guys may recognize, it was the document that Bob did for us back in, oh, I'm sorry. Let me have one. It was the document that Bob prepared back on January 20th after hearing about the release of the governor's proposal. So everything that is in black was the original document that you received in January. Everything that is in red is what we believe to be true as of today, based on this PowerPoint, based on a Association of Chief Business Officers conference that we attended last week. But none of this is set in stone until the budget is finalized. So these are moving targets. But there is some good news, and some not so good news. But just going through, the COLA has changed from 0.86% down to 0.85%. Although you saw in the PowerPoint that the Subcommittee on Education and both the State Assembly and House, right? Assembly and Senate, have requested a 1.7% increase for COLA. So what you'll see in the column to the far right under May 29th is the 0.85% portion that PCC would get, which is $899,000, or if it went to the 1.7%, the district would get $1.7 million in change.
So was the original projection just off because the number went up, but the percentage went down?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was,
Okay.
it was all
All right,
based
that's
upon
fine.
the shifting. And again, as all these things settle in. Yeah.
And yes and no. They did an increase for the COLA as well. So if you see
Well, the
the
COLA went
94
from 0.86 to 0.85.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it went up from, I forget the number, up to $94.6 million. It went up a little
Exactly,
bit.
that is the point.
And that's kind of why the number's off a little bit too. Yes.
Just a quick question. The district gets the money or we get the cost of living increase?
The district receives all funds, and how those funds are distributed are based on whatever agreements are made. So the district is always going to get the dollars.
Oh, of course.
So if there's, and in the next document we talk about what was sunshined in the contract offers from the district
Okay.
and how it would break out.
Okay.
Okay,
Alright.
but this is just the COLA as a whole.
Okay.
All right, so the next thing is the access. So it changed from 3% and it was revised down to 2.75%.
And a quick, that number went as low as 2% and went up to 2.5, and it had to be argued, and the CEOs had to be convinced of that because there's not a whole lot of districts in the state that can actually grow. So the majority of districts wanted to keep the growth lower so that the extra money would be able to go into other categories. But the LAs, the Pasadenas, and others of the world were able to persevere.
At one time, there was talk about districts that could grow beyond what the appropriation would be allowed to do that, and would take from districts who couldn't grow up to the appropriation. Did that go away?
No, that's still in there from a procedural administrative point of view. The Chancellor's Office apparently still has the ability to do that. For example, those districts, we will likely have a shot, as will some of the other larger districts, of collecting more FTS than what was allocated to us. Not sure how much yet. You know, we did the census on the summer was, I think, either Friday or last Monday or what have you. We're still trying to figure out all the numbers. So the shorthand answer is yes, that's still in as a possibility. We just don't know how much yet.
So for access, the original estimate was 3%, and the dollar amount allocated to the system was $155,200,000. $200,000. That was revised down to 2.75%, and the dollar amount available to the system has also been revised down to $140,400,000. So the 2.667600 all the way to the right is the 1.9% of the $140 million, and that's what the district would get. Okay. The next category, student success, hasn't changed. Everything that we're aware of right now is that the 1.9 million will be coming to us. The $100 million has not changed. The student equity plans, another $100 million, 1.9% for the district is another $1.9 million. There are matches for the student success. It's a 2-to-1 match right now for fiscal year 14-15. And I have that broken out in the next memo that I'll hand out. But what we don't know is whether or not there's going to be a match for the student equity plan. They were talking about a 1-to-1 match. We don't know yet. Item number 5, deferred maintenance. This changed from a bucket of money for the system of $87.5 million, and it was revised upward to $1,999,000. That didn't sound right? $199 million. And the reason why that happened was because number 6 for instructional equipment went away. So they combined the 2 buckets of money. They're making it available for deferred maintenance, and there's language out there that has not been approved yet, but they're talking about making some of those funds flexible for the districts to use whatever way they wish.
And quickly, the reason why, when the LAO reviewed the governor's budget, they spoke glowingly about the work that the facilities people did statewide to put together a schedule of significant maintenance needs through across all 72 districts. It was very well articulated. When the LAO looked for something similar for instructional equipment, nothing existed. So the LAO came back and said, well, until we know what the needs are, we really don't want to allocate any money, so we recommend that you strip that out. And that was what was agreed to. However, the 2 houses, the Assembly and the Senate, they're saying, no, we need some flexibility to at least, in the case of PCC, we got $3.8 million, give them the flexibility to determine how to spend it. In the meantime, we will be getting a survey from the Chancellor's office almost any day now that to each district saying, you need to give us a schedule of your instructional equipment needs. Fortunately, we've got a head start on that because we worked with the deans last year, Joe did, and we already have that schedule. We'll send it out again, we'll get it up to date, and it'll be relatively quick for us to respond to it.
Is there any match attached to that?
Not at the moment. And that's the nice thing about these monies is that right now, on the, in fact, it's deferred maintenance, I don't think there's a match on this.
It went away.
And language was right, but it's, here it says it's a match, one-time match, 1-to-1.
It should be
Yeah,
taken out.
so that should be taken out. So there is no match to that, so that's just clean money for us. So we'll fix that.
And so if everything stays the same, that would be a $3.8 million bucket of funds for the district.
But categorical in the sense it can only go to maintenance. Yes, ma'am?
Were the faculty asked for their instructional equipment needs?
Julie, you asked me about that, I think, last time. So there were 2 times that the survey went out, and I don't know if everybody got it. It was back in November, I think November of 2012, and then it went out again mid last year. And so if you need it, I can share
To
it with you.
faculty?
No, I think
know.
the shorthand answer is, I don't know if every dean did do what she or he would have hoped to have done, to be honest with you. I don't know the answer to that.
So it didn't go to faculty.
Okay. I think
we do.
But Dr. Bell has the final version that I had, so if you need it.
It would be nice if faculty could say what our instructional needs are.
But I can, if to the extent I can assure you that when we come out with the survey that the state's gonna ask us to do, we will be very prescriptive to the academic affairs unit to make sure that the faculty are engaged in this process. You know, hopefully the
Seems like
deans
they
do that.
should be the front line
Yeah.
of the process.
Yeah, okay.
Because I can't imagine who knows what the instructional needs of the classroom are better than the students and the faculty.
Totally agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, sorry, I had a question about, back to number 3, student success funds, there's no match on that as well?
There is a 2-to-1 match.
Okay, I thought so, because based on the slideshow, it said something about the match.
2 state dollars to 1 local dollar?
No, 2 local dollars to 1 state dollar.
Oh, well.
So we'll plug that into.
Okay, and then item number 7, this is the deferral. We were expecting $11.9 million to the district. However, to be conservative, we wanted to show the May 29th dollar amount as 11.2. As again, as we get final numbers and the May revise comes out and all the good information that's more cement, we'll cement the dollar amounts and share this document again.
But let me ask, how could, if it's past money, how do we not know now what they didn't pay us?
Because they may not, the anticipation is that they're gonna pay us in full for past dollars, but you don't know until it's actually done.
So was the first one based on paid in full, and the
Yes.
second one is based not in paying in full?
Yeah, with a
What-
small, I think it was like a 0.5% I took home.
What do you
Okay.
think?
The difference between the
Okay.
11.2 and the 11.9 for the
Fudged
Yes,
half a million,
yes,
yeah.
okay.
Okay. So the redevelopment agencies, we don't know what's going on with that. In the conference, somebody made a comment about LA County being the most
Holding up.
difficult to
Yeah.
get information from because it was so large. So we don't know what's going on there, so I left it blank. Okay. Hopefully it's good news, closer we get. The next page is all in red because this was all good news. This was good news because what was shared at the conference was that all categorical fundings that had been reduced in the past are going to be refunded at 100%. So DSPS, there's another $50 million in the bucket, which would be $950,000 for the district. Conversion of part-time faculty positions to full-time, an additional $25 million in the system, so our cut would be $475,000. EOP&S, 18 million, our share is $342,000. CalWorks, $15,285,000 for us. Apprenticeship programs, $8,152,000 for us. And EWD, I'm still trying to figure out what that is. Do you know?
Employee something development, I think.
Okay, so for something, we get 190,000. Part-time faculty office hours, $6.5 million added to the system, so the district would receive $123,000 for that. And then student success for basic skills students, $95,000. Child care programs, $3.4 million added, $64,000 for the district. Foster and kinship care education, $19,000. Academic Senate had a $500,000 increase, so the district would receive $9,500 from that. And then current year funds to pay off prior year mandates, an additional $34 million was added to the system, so the district should be receiving $646,000 for that. So all in all, if I added this up correctly the 2 minutes before the meeting, anticipated revenue for Fund 1 is $4.8 million. Anticipated revenue for categorical funds, $10.4 million. And then the one-time deferrals, again, it's just a conservative amount of $11.2 million.
Joe, quick question.
Uh-huh.
On the conversion of part-time faculty positions, do you have a ballpark figure you use to convert that into number of positions?
I couldn't tell you. I'd have to get back to you.
I think the answer would be, first of all, EWD is economic and workforce development, number 15. You know, if we use the average number of $90,000 to $100,000 per each full-time faculty position, that would be 4 to 5 positions is what that would be. I have not seen that one recently, so I'm not even sure if that would be. I'm not even sure if the requirement is to add 5 new positions or 4.5 new positions, or we can use that in relation to our FFON requirement or what have you. I don't know. So we'll keep our eye on that. We'll sort out how to do that. But however we have to spend it, we'll spend it that way.
I have a question about 17, the basic skills students. Is that in addition to the basic skills initiative funds that we have for next year?
Yes.
That's not the same though, but it's
No.
on top of and separate.
Yes. Basically, it's a separate fund that goes to. I don't know if it's tied to the BSI funding or not, but the point is that in whatever bucket they're going to put it in, they're making another 5 million available. And again, these are very specific, it's almost like, what was that term that the Congress used to use when they, not pork barreling, but there was, well, that too, but each congressperson used to be able to have local appropriations, and there was a term for that. Well, it's pork barreling, but there's another term for it too, where they could do, anyway. So these are just, some special interest groups are able to convince somebody that this is a nice thing to put money into, and they're doing that. So,
Bob?
yeah.
And since this is the governor's proposed budget, the likelihood that these funds would be decreased is pretty small, you think?
I think that we're gonna go up. I don't think we're gonna go down.
Right. Or they might move.
They might move. But the point is that this is based upon the governors may revise. I don't remember when you came exactly, Mary Aaron, but you might have seen that the legislature has a different
Right.
They're being
threshold. The legislature is being more generous, so that's my point, is
Yes,
the
so
governor's
somewhere
being
between
stingy,
where
the
the
legislature
that's
is
right,
being more
and
generous.
somewhere in between is gonna be the answer. And we will know that in June, you know.
Hopefully within the next few weeks.
Within the next few weeks, because the state budget will need to be passed, and if it's not, then these guys don't get paid, and we know they wanna get paid.
So these are pretty safe bottom lines.
These are pretty safe this is actually the most conservative bottom line, right, Joe? So, down at the bottom, the summary is pretty important, because the anticipated new revenue for '01 is $4.8 million. But when you look at all of the categorical funds in '03, which all have to be obviously spent very specifically on that which is, that which they are for, it's an additional $10.4 million coming to the district. And then we've got the one-time deferral cash coming to the district. So the budget's gonna be up. So with that said, you wanna take them to the next document?
In terms of the deferrals, if we're treating this conservatively, why go with 11, what's the legislature saying about that?
Well, the legislature and everybody is in agreement, the governor and the legislature, that this year, because things went well fiscally, they can bring every district whole in terms of all the money that was left on the table in the past, all the deferral income. So in the case of the Pasadena Area Community College District, that's $11.2 million. And also, we're told that cash money will come to us in the first quarter, and maybe as early as by mid to late July. Just, they're gonna pay all the districts off, because they're sitting on the cash, they've got the cash, and they'll let it go.
So just, sorry, go ahead.
Are those for '01 and '03? Or
It's just '01, it's only '01, and it's all of the money that was held back, when the district didn't have, when the state didn't have the money, there was this things called deficit factors and things, and there's a lot of money that were held back, because of the fact they didn't have the money to pay.
And this started in what year?
I wanna say 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that range, I think that's about right.
And continued.
And it continued on, and it was always, it's money they borrowed from either Prop 98 or from EPA, the Education Protection Act, or the ERAF, the Education Revenue and Anticipation Funds Act, I think it is. And so they kept borrowing from these funds to balance enough of the state budget, but they always kept track of what they owed to the different K-12 through 14, and now, because of Goodyear, they have money to pay everybody back and bring everybody.
So back to my question, which was, why be conservative and have 11.2 instead of 11.9? Why?
Because
Cut it by
when
$700,000.
everything was recalculated, the 11.9 at the January budget, when they recalculated everything to get to the so-called May revise, the overall monies owed everybody decreased, and in our case it was $700,000 roughly.
But if it was in the past, how could it change? That's what I didn't understand, and I was gonna ask it one more time.
I'm sorry, I need to clarify. I took off, I believe, about 0.5% to make sure, because just because we're being told we're gonna get the full amount,
Oh, I see.
it's not done yet. And so not until it's done do I want to make sure that when we share the document saying this is the final document, that it's the 11.9.
So they owe us 11.9, you
Correct.
just don't know if they're gonna pay it all to us,
Correct.
that's why you put the 11, okay,
Yes.
that's what I, okay.
Okay, and so what I'm gonna do, I didn't know that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask Joe to put the 11.9 back in now, okay? Because if we know it's 11.9, you're confident of that? Then we'll put 11.9 there, because that's what it is. Okay? Now, having said that, if it comes to 11.2, he'll be able to say, no, I told you so. But for now, we'll put 11.9 in.
Okay.
All right? Does that work?
Yep.
Mr. Fiscal Conservative over here is a little worried about that, so we'll talk about that. But if that's what it is, that's what it is.
Okay.
Okay.
So the next memo I'm handing out is the proposed fiscal year 14-15 preparation of the tentative budget. So the document we just went through and the document we're handing out now should be similar, but they're not going to be dollar for dollar because I was working on two different things at two different times. Because there is additional revenue coming in and those unanticipated cost increases that we talked about specifically related to the benefits and some other things that have happened this year, we're going to have to look for some general fund $01 to plug those holes. So I'm going to walk you through the memo. Please stop me at any time, ask whatever questions you want. But this has not been shared with the managers yet. So they will see this on Monday because they're getting it first. But the estimated 01 fund revenues, we are anticipating $4.3 million. So the other document you just saw added up to 4.8. This morning when I did this document, it was 4.3. So cost of living allowance, this is at 0.86%. It's $899,000. The restoration and the growth, if we hit it, is just under $2.7 million. And then the anticipated fiscal year rollover is between $750,000 to $1 million. $753,000 is what I felt comfortable putting down. And right now I can't give a specific number because we're in the middle of year-end closing, reconciling all the requisitions and the purchase orders and the contracts. So that was the number I was comfortable with.
And the rollover is over and above the reserve.
Yes.
Estimated 01 fund potential mandatory reduction. So even though we're getting the $4.3 million increase, we're anticipating a cost increase of $3.5 million. So the cost of living allowance, and this goes to your question, Denise, 50% of that 0.86% that we would get for the COLA will cost $449,000 for the district to, if the contracts are signed and that 50% of the COLA is approved, that's what it would cost.
Okay.
The deficit factor, we are anticipating it to be quite a bit less than 2%, but because we're talking about the tentative budget, we want to make sure we're as conservative as possible. So we're saying right now, for the tentative budget, it's going to be 2%. And that is $1.6 million.
And let me,
What is deficit factor, what do they mean?
okay, so the deficit factor, every year, for whatever reason, the system ends up short paying in the current fiscal year the full amount of apportionment that they said they were going to pay. Now, they normally adjust it the following year, but every year they do it. And that deficit factor has ranged from as low as 0.5% to as high during the bad years of 4 or 5%. So there was a listserv survey taken of all the districts maybe a month ago where everybody was asking each other, what do you budget? The majority of people usually, the business folks usually do about a 2%. They take, if we're going to get 100 million, they're going to expect that basically they're not going to get 2 million of that in that fiscal year, so they budget 98. They get the 100, that's great. I think that going into this year, we're going to be more like a 1%, but I think Joe's right here. I think we should just plan the 2, and then if it ends up getting more, we just have that much more to work with next year if need be.
So this is different from deferral, though? It's
Yes.
just,
Yes,
okay,
this is
all
different
right.
from
It's
deferral.
just- Okay, got it.
Just a deficit factor.
And
Yeah.
And all
San
of these-
Francisco,
Yes.
Yeah, and this is,
And let me just add to that really
Sure.
fast. All of these numbers are going to change. This is in preparation for the tentative budget that we'll take to the board on June 25th so we can pay our bills July 1st. And then in September, I think it's September 3rd, is when we take the final adopted budget. And at that time, all of these numbers will be solid numbers. And then they'll be revised and reflected.
And possibly adjusted in a better way, and theory, will be adjusted in a better way. Statutorily, we have to have our board approve a tentative operating budget prior to July 1 of every year. So we're going to give them a budget, and it's a tentative budget. Okay, so let me talk about San Francisco for a second. Everybody's well aware of the problems that San Francisco is having. And the bottom line is that the legislature and the governor's office and Chancellor Harris have decided that the system as a system has got to bail them out financially to the tune of about $28 or $29 million. In the tail end of Scott's presentation last week, he really upset a lot of people when he said that that every district was going to be assessed 1.75% of their apportionment income in order to support San Francisco's deficit. So Big Mouth here got up and said, well, why are they taking money out of the system? Why don't they take money out of one of the other many, many pots that they've got up there? And the answer was that he didn't know, but nobody wanted to salute that, particularly with the growth factor, because everybody kind of doubted the growth factor was going to be hit anyway, so he felt that the system was going to have the money. And then he went on to this long thing about how there were 77,000 students up there who were at risk of losing their education, and the system had a moral and ethical obligation to bail out their community college. Many of the people in the room felt that if the rest of us were somehow able to fiscally manage our resources, why should we bail them out? And then on top of that, San Francisco is the recipient of a special sales tax that the city did for them, as well as a recipient of a parcel tax. Now, most districts, and not all other districts, don't get a special parcel tax and don't get a special sales tax. And on top of that, as a system, we've got to give them $29 million. So at the moment, and I don't think this is going to change much, it's going to cost this district 1.75% of its total apportionment allocation. And that number is $1.4 million.
Now, are we looking at this as an ongoing cost or a one-time cost?
You know, at the moment it's one time, but nobody really knows. It's just to bail them out for 14, 15.
So that would be a candidate maybe for some of the one-time deferral money.
That might be, exactly. Right, we're gonna have to get it from someplace, and that certainly, either we get it out of 01 or we get it out. The point is that our income's gonna be reduced by that amount of money, so however we make it up. Yes, Steve?
Do you know specifically what this 1.4 million is going to be used for their we don't know.
They're gonna get 29 million from the system to help balance their budget.
Wow.
Yeah, but anyway, it's long debated, long fought over, a lot of upset people up there. But Scott did this whole moral, ethical argument thing, and it was falling on very deaf ears up there, very deaf ears.
Immoral accountants.
Because the issue, every college is being asked to do more with either the same or less. I mean, look at our benefits, for example. We're getting a 0.86% COLA. And so we're struggling to provide the level of service that we're providing with a very small incremental increase, and we've got to subsidize San Francisco. Yes, sir.
And the decision this is a chancellor's decision? This is not a state legislative decision?
It's the chancellor, yes. Well,
Okay.
I don't know, I can't be very specific about that. All I can tell you is that the chancellor, the legislature, the CCLC, and the CCC, the Community College Trustees Association, they refused to take a position on it. But the CCLC did speak in favor of it, and the chancellor did too. And a lot of people are upset with Bryce, and he's actually a pretty good chancellor by all accounts. But this whole the ACCJC, I mean, it's a mess beyond messes. It's strange. It's very strange. Anyway,
All right.
that's what that is.
Okay, so for the estimated 01 fund potential or mandatory reductions, we're looking at 3.5%. The unanticipated cost increases for benefits, CalSTRS, and CalPERS, we're looking at another cost of $3.3 million. So if you look,
I think you flipped the STRS and the PER numbers.
what's that?
You flipped the STRS and the PERS numbers. So the numbers are all correct, but
Yes,
it's
we
for
did.
PERS and STRS.
Oh, the percentages?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
the dollar amounts. We just flipped them.
And
No,
the
the
percentages.
dollar amounts are right, it's the percentages.
The percentages, that's right. Yeah.
So we are looking at potential cost increases of $6.7 million, and we're looking at potential increase of funding of only $4.4 million. So we had to find the money somewhere. And so what we started to do, yeah.
Well, there is that 11.2
Well, keep
deferred.
going.
Let me-
Okay.
Sorry.
So we had to start somewhere. So
Oh,
we
that
looked at
only, that
fund-
extra $11 million. Don't worry about it.
Right.
You're all right.
Spent 5 times already.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we looked at the budget. Now that we have Lancer Point, we're able to pull out a spreadsheet that shows us what was adopted for 13-14 and any permanent, as I understand it, any permanent transfers in cost centers and object codes. So what I tried to do is look at all of the object codes, which is what is listed here. So advertising, books, classified, it goes on to the next page, all the way through supplies and materials. And I tried to look at a percentage, and there really was no rhyme or reason. I just tried to come up with a percentage that made sense, and applied that percentage across the board to all cost centers by object code. So
Percentage up or a percentage down?
percentage down, I took
Okay.
out, yeah. So looking at advertising, taking out 5% of all of the advertising dollars in the 13-14 budget equated to $13,351. Looking at books, same thing, 5% equated to $621. Classified stipends, 5%, $6,500.
So, I mean, you don't need to read all of it.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
But the biggest chunks of money I really want to highlight is any of the computer equipment. So we have 3 categories of object codes. Computer equipment, $5,000 or greater. New equipment, $5,000 or greater. And new equipment between $500 and $5,000. Now, my understanding is that we do not budget for equipment outside of the IT department. The dollars that were in the budget are rolled over from the previous year into the new budget because we have not received the equipment yet. We've ordered it, it's on its way, we haven't received it by June 30th, so the money is then carried over into the new fiscal year, so it's previous fiscal year dollars paying for that equipment. Does that make sense? Okay, so what I'm proposing is to do what the district has always done, which is zero out those dollar amounts in the budget so it can go back to a pool that can be reallocated. But I do have to think about the potential, and as we're doing year-end closing, the accounts payable staff at some point in the near future will be able to tell me what that rollover amount should be. And right now I'm anticipating it's going to be about $500,000 to $550,000 out of what was last year, I think, about $900,000. A little over $1 million.
And we'll show you where that money is in a few minutes.
Yeah. So these are just recommendations about the percentage that a cost center and an object code could be reduced and what the total dollar amount is. So this is going to go to the management team on Monday. They're going to have the opportunity to look at it because they'll be able to tell me whether or not this makes sense for their department's budget. And then I'll make additional adjustments and this document will be revised at that point.
Joe, how is your thinking affected by the likelihood of equipment money coming from the state?
Well, this changed because the equipment money, instructional equipment, is no longer available. So what we did for that $11.2 million is allocated out of that money $1 million for new instructional equipment.
And so before we get into that, so you recall in our earlier just mention that we had 2 pots of money in January, which was one for scheduled maintenance and one for instructional equipment. The governor in his May revised said, no, the instructional equipment is out. And he combined, he basically took the, whatever it is, and he created a fund of $199 million or whatever it was, and said this is only for deferred maintenance projects. The legislature is saying we want to give local districts the option to spend it either way, but that's still not in the budget. So this this reflects May revise governor's budget. It doesn't reflect anything that the legislature tried to do, because as we mentioned earlier, somewhere in the middle is going to lie the answer, but we don't want to deal with the middle, right? We don't want to guess. We'd rather just stick with what we know the governor will sign, because at the end of the day, he's got the blue pen, he's got the veto power.
Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. Oh, go ahead.
Thanks, Mary Ann. You're the best. I have a question. Relief or extra help hourly college assistants, and then
Yes.
student help student workers.
Yes.
If you add those two together, you get 35%
Mhm.
of our budget is going to hourly people, which
Well, yours-
equals $440,000 that you could hire full-time classified people
Mhm.
instead of having hourlies.
That's true.
Oh, and we're not gonna do anything about that?
To plug
I'm
the
just
holes.
asking, I'm
Yeah.
just,
And that's,
it's a concern.
it's been a thought. And the reality is this year, with these dollar amounts, until we can figure out what it is, where these dollars and the percentages are going to fall, then this may not happen. If we need it because the revenue to the district isn't as high as we're hoping it's going to be, if it is high, then that money could be reallocated. And as we go through this list, you'll see what I'm talking
Oh,
about.
okay.
Okay. So,
Maria.
So just on the percentage of the shift, these are reductions
Yeah,
yes.
from the 13, 14.
and we'll add the word reduction
Okay.
Reallocation.
underneath that,
And-
the reallocation.
And so how did you pick these particular object codes? Because this is not the complete list of object codes, right?
She wants to use that percentage.
I'm sorry?
How did you pick these particular object codes?
This is the majority of the object codes. The ones that I recall that I did not pull from was the overtime and there were two. Overtime and instructional aids. The other ones that I did not touch were the salary driven and the health and welfare benefit object codes.
All of them.
Correct.
Now, if you can think of other categories that we should consider, and by the way, we don't need every answer today. That like Joe said, we got this in front of you folks before we got it in front of anybody else, and so it's open to discussion.
Well, I'd just like to ask the question, what's the change in we have how many management positions now?
We have.
Too many.
I think it was over 80.
I think 76 or 77.
We have 77.
Right.
We had 68. We added 9 this year, a total of 77. Full-time faculty. We have 368, adjuncts 909, classified 322, college assistants 485, student assistants 503, volunteers 55, for a total employee base of 2,719 people. The percentage of administrative staff to that number is 2.83%.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
2.83% to manage?
yeah, but come on.
2,700
To-
people?
To say 2% when you're counting every student aid and every
Yeah,
college, I mean, it's
seriously.
not an
Yeah.
honest
It's a-
appraisal. But anyway, it's okay.
Well,
But the ratio to full-time faculty
We're not
is more like
questioning you, Bob.
23%.
Well, okay, but just to be whatever it's worth, every body someone has to be responsible for.
Yeah, but I
Okay.
mean,
But yeah, and the classified
well,
are responsible
anyway.
for the hourly.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. I mean, it does
No, it
matter
does
because
matter.
obviously it
Does
matters. But anyway,
At this point,
is
it
that
Uh,
list,
matters
is
what
that
you're
list
saying.
somewhere? 'Cause I
this
like
was
to look at that
this was
sometime.
given to the academic senate. It was given to Melissa Michelson actually, because this came from Melissa's question.
Okay, so is that
It's
posted
analysis.
on like BRAC's site or something, or
I don't
how
know.
can we get it? Let me ask that.
We will
It's
get you
probably
a
on the
copy.
site
Perfect,
for
perfect.
academic senate.
Love to see it. Okay.
So Marina, would you remind me? And then there's even some very colorful charts that talk about managers to employees in relation to other districts and other things. And blah, blah, blah.
We
So-
could
Okay.
have saved several $100s today if these were black and white. We really don't need to do this
Or the
anymore.
paper.
Okay,
No, I'm really honest now. I mean, we don't need to do this.
gotcha.
No.
Okay.
Black and white. Okay,
Or
no
just
more,
send
no
it to
more
us.
charts, no more of that. I provided hard copies just because I thought you guys would use them for other purposes, but you don't have to
This
have,
is
because I ran through it real
expensive
quick.
stuff.
I know, we could have done black and white. I apologize for that. Are they double-sided at least?
Yeah,
they-
they are.
Double-sided in color though.
Yeah.
All right, we got it half right, all right? We got it half right.
That's 5% of printing.
All right, anyway, very good. Okay, Joe, keep going.
Okay, so those are your
It's getting kind of
categories.
hot in here.
Okay, so between the $4.4 million and the $3.9 million in shifting of funds or reallocation of funds, that should cancel out what the potential increases or unanticipated costs to the district. However, we now have a list of additional funds or additional costs that we are aware of that need to be funded in year 14-15. And that's the next list of items.
Sure.
So the fiscal year supplemental early retirement program, that's gonna cost, and you've seen this list before too. In last month's BRAC meeting, it's just a different format. The OPEB contribution, the 10 new faculty, professional development, 2% salary increases from the Sunshine offers, the step and column increases, equipment leases, accreditation dollars, minimum wage increases. What's highlighted in yellow, the student success match, the 2-to-1. We believe at this point in time that the amount of money that we spend on salaries and health and welfare benefits actually can be used for the match. So we don't have to find another $2 for every dollar that we get. But we don't know yet. We're still doing that analysis. So at the very bottom where it says total, if we do need to find those $2 for every dollar that we get, then we're short $9.2 million. If we don't need to find it, then we're short $5.4 million. Okay? But things, let's keep going, because it's not as bad as it sounds. So here's, Denise, where you were talking about. If the dollars are not needed for the relief workers or the student workers, we're putting aside a potential placeholder for $600,000 in the event there's additional funds. So we can at least make the request for additional classified staff.
And I would also say, I'm sorry, Sharp, one second. I would also say that if the district and the CFT came to agreement, some of the monies that we spend on college assistants could be shifted into full-time positions. The reality, though, in that whole scenario is that college assistants are typically less expensive than full-time staff, and you typically don't have to pay benefits, although with ACA you will have to pay benefits if they're over 30 hours a week. So your college assistant money will not go as far when you add permanent staff. So there's a trade-off, there's a balance that will have to be discussed and thought about at a different table at a different time.
Can I just comment on that
Sure.
really quick? Because I do know that they have been increasing college assistants by 6 months, by 6 months, by 6 months. By the time it's a year. They've been here for a year. Do you know what I'm saying? So their 900 hours are being extended because they need those people.
Well, the
So
900
you're not
hours.
really saving money
Yeah.
if you're extending their time.
Well, the 900 hours.
You mean from
There's a
900 to
very
1,000?
few 900 hours that are being extended. Not very many, and only in the most urgent of
Oh,
situations.
no, which is A&R. I understand that.
Okay,
and
only the
that
most
they need
urgent.
it.
But it's very, very few, because then you get into you have a permanent obligation to pay PERS and Apple and all that other stuff.
Correct.
So it's minimal. But yeah, Chop.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm finished.
No, that.
He's done with me.
No, but you were going to add something more to this, I think. Were you?
They're already paying into Apple and their college assistants, but when I raised my hand, you had already addressed my concern was
Oh.
that shifting a college assistant to a classified employee, you're right, we're looking at costs with benefits, and then that's the balancing of all that whole thing. Now, a lot of these college assistants that exceed 900 hours to 1,000, there are not that many as you may think. However, a lot of them now are turning into substitutes,
Right.
And that
which
becomes-
alleviates that danger of them having to exceed the 1,000 and
Yeah,
having
we're
to have
trying
those.
to work within the system as much as possible to staff to the degree that we
You know
need
what? Just asking questions.
You can
I'm
do a
not-
sub for a
I'm
year.
not
Faculty, you can do full-time.
For a year.
How about a classified sub?
60 days at a time.
60
60
days. It has
days
to
at
be
a time.
approved by the union for every 60 days that they
Okay.
want to extend it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just asking a question. I'm not
I know.
checking up
It's
on you,
okay.
you know?
It's all right.
Just making sure that I
We
know,
are.
you know that I know what's going on.
I'm just happy that Ruben's got a new temperature control thing in this building.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited. Thank you.
It's more comfortable. All right,
So
so.
600,000 as a potential in the event that there's either additional revenue or we don't need the dollars from the relief or the student
Okay.
workers.
Okay.
Now, the areas where we are counting salary and health and welfare benefits, where we're going to get the dollar or the money for SSSP, I backed out those dollars from the student workers and the extra relief because we may need it for the match.
Okay, okay, that's fine.
Again, not something I know right now, but we're thinking about.
Okay.
Pardon me,
Thank you.
Joe.
Yeah.
Back to the highlighted student success dollars.
Uh-huh.
I know that might not be an issue, and you've made an allowance for either case, but even if it was that we had to pay for it, isn't it actually $1,900 cheaper because we're going to be getting $1,900?
No.
$1,900,000.
No, that's what we need to put up in order to get the money. So we have to put $2 in for
Oh,
every
that's
dollar
right.
that we get.
But then we get the other money, right?
Correct. But the other money is put into categorical funding and we can't touch it for unrestricted dollars.
And those of you who know a little bit about the 50% law, it's a real problem with that too, because at the end of the day, we still have to invest 50% or more into instruction, direct instruction. And the more of these things that come in that are not quote unquote defined as direct instruction, it makes it more difficult for us to hit that throne. So there are many districts out there who are saying, if you have a match, we can't take your money, because we don't know where we would get that money from. They don't have the money. And that's what that's why they're fighting and trying to do it. As it is, student equity is, they're still debating what they're gonna do with that in terms of a match or not a match.
Can you explain what these dollars are for?
Which dollar?
SSSP.
It's the Student Support Success Program, it's SSSP. It used to be the old matric, the old matriculation. And
In
matriculation,
words.
so counseling, mentoring programs, outreach programs, different types of advising programs. I'm looking at David because there's a variety of things. It's everything that's on the student support side of the house, short of putting them in a classroom and teaching them.
Psychology, counseling?
Well, psych services up to a degree, but that part of that is funded by DSPS. But it's all of the student services, whatever things that happen in student affairs side, it's all of that type of thing. Yes,
But
ma'am.
it's not the student equity.
No, student equity is a brand new bucket of
Right,
money
right.
this year. The other thing is,
Is that on here?
It is not on here because right now there is no dollar for dollar match.
but it's shown as an income under the 03, is it
And-
not?
and
No, this is
we
just,
don't-
no, this
we
is
don't
just
have
01,
those
this is
on
just
here.
01, so it's not here, that's right.
And what does
Oh, and
student
that's
equity
okay.
Yeah.
mean?
Student equity plans. So, ed plans, plans for completion through the degree works, where they do degree audits, people working directly to complete students in less than 6 years. The new technology costs associated with creating those plans, more counselors, more mentors, if you will. And there's another term that they use for them too that I'm blanking on right now. Beg your pardon?
Ambassadors.
Ambassador types, and in the TLC, in that program, we've got another term that they're using as well. Coaches,
Coaches, right.
coaches, those types of things.
It sounds just like SSP. How are they different?
It is SSP, just one more S in there. It's the Student Success Support Program.
No, but
Okay,
he asked you about
but,
equity.
but
But the
the equity, the way
Oh,
you were describing it was.
Because equity is more specific to creating those education plans, which doesn't happen now. It's more specific in terms of driving more funds for completers. The SSSP is tied specifically to the, if you will, the umbrella services that are provided to move students through the system, whereas student equity plan money is gonna dive deeper into specific intervention programs and support services, like coaches. Short of the first year experience program that we've got now 1,600 students in, no one else enjoys the coach concept, for example. So if it's $100 million and we'll get 1.9 million of that, 1.9%, then we're gonna have, Dr. Levo and others will have another 1.9 million to carve into and fund their student equity plan. Some of you may know that student equity plans are required to be submitted at least annually, maybe it's every 2 years. Most districts abandoned them when times got bad and didn't do them. Ours is out of date by, I think the last time we did one was like 2005, 2006, and we're not atypical. Most of them did that. The big fear among student service officers late last spring and a little bit into the last winter was that they would have to get those plans done by July 1. And they got a reprieve from the governor, not literally, but by the chancellor's office, and now their plans are due in November. So some of you who may be going to college council have seen Dr. Levo go through her student equity plan outline, and she's got a committee working on that right now of faculty and staff putting that plan together. So by the November, we'll submit our plan, and then based upon that plan, they'll give us our $1.9 million.
Okay,
to
and-
fund that
and-
money.
What staff are on there? I mean, we don't,
I
we
don't know who
didn't
she,
put anybody on.
I don't know who she's got in there, but, you know,
Shouldn't it go through classified senate?
I don't know, I don't know what that is,
Maybe you should check with her.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, just so I got it clear, the SSSP, the 3.8 million is our match, so we get another 1.9 million.
In a different fund.
In the 03
Though
fund.
that's coming from the state though,
Right,
correct?
yes.
Okay, so a total of 5.7 plus the student equity would be 1.9.
Well,
I realize that would be, it's a specialized part
Yeah.
within there, but
the,
I just want to make sure the numbers, that's what we're spending for that.
our matching dollars are, if we can come up to 3.8, and I think we can, I hope we can, is actually budgeted money now. It's not new money, it's
We
budgeted
won't
money
have
now.
So we're looking for positions and resources that would qualify in the
That's
match
correct.
that are currently funded.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
So there's not really going to be that kind of expense attached to it. It's
Waiting
extraordinary.
for confirmation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
But
that's
we
why he
believe-
thinks he can back it out.
right. We believe that it's currently covered right now with salaries and other welfare benefits.
And
I
if-
think
and-
right now we're about $4.5 million that could be applied, so
And
we're covered.
We should be okay, but if for some reason, because of the 50% law calculation of the things, it came out to say 3 million, then we'd have an $800,000 cost, as an example. But we think we're gonna be able to cover it.
Mhm.
We hope.
But there would be another 1.9 million from the state. This is money we're matching, and then,
So that's
right?
what I want to clarify.
Yeah.
The 1.9 million doesn't go back into this fund. Fund 1 is our
right,
unrestricted.
no, I
option.
understand that.
But
I
it goes
understand
into 03.
Right.
You can't touch it for
And-
anything.
No,
other
I
than what-
understand.
Does
And on top of that, the auditors are gonna look very carefully to make sure that new money wasn't used to supplant district funds.
Okay, so let's say you choose a counselor to be identified as part of the match. Does their salary go into the 03 fund as a result of being the match?
No, but it could go against the 1.9 if that was part of the student equity plan, for example. So we might be able to shift dollars there. Now, I will tell you, the student services people are loath to do that because they get concerned about the fact that we've moved positions from hard money, guaranteed money to soft money, and what happens when the soft money goes away. Now, realistically, I can tell you what happens because we lived through it when times were bad. When they first did the cuts, let's see, I got here in 5, 6, I got here in 05, so maybe 6, 7 is that happened. And what did we do? The district, we didn't lay anybody off. The district absorbed those costs, and I don't think we would lay anybody off. So, if we can use the 03 money to, if you will, allow us to reallocate some of the 01 money, we'll definitely do that. But we may have to pay the piper somewhere down the road. But for now, I would recommend that we do that, just to try to get us through what we need to get through.
But just some 03 money can't be touched whatsoever, like mine can't be touched.
Right. It's very
And it has
specific.
to, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, this is the recommendation for the $11.2 million, and this is just a starting point, but we know that we either did not fund or we underfunded some of our self-insurance funds. And so we are looking to, based on an actuarial report, we're trying to get them back up to the level that they need to be at.
So it's additional to the 1.5
Correct.
or so that goes into gas meat now.
$1,050,000.
So
Yeah.
we'd increase it to
$2,050,000.
like 2.5, something.
Yeah. So, correct, absolutely right. So the other post-employment benefits, we're looking at doing an additional $1 million because it's a one-time cost. The workers' compensation fund, another $1.5 million because that's severely underfunded from what I understand. The instructional equipment, $1 million. Reserves, $2.5 million. Fund 41, facilities, capital projects, and information technology, total of $3.1 million. The budget development cost center. So we have this cost center where we let me start over. There are programs that are approved in the college to move forward. And at the time, a budget has not been developed for them. It's just a high-level dollar amount that's approved for whatever that program is. We have to place it in the budget somewhere until we get the breakdown of those dollars from that cost center manager, so we can put $500,000 in $500 in conferences, $1,000 in supplies, or whatever. What I would like to do is place in this cost center for the budget development $500,000 for unanticipated costs that I'm not aware of. And the best example I can give you is this year, we were not anticipating, we got a number of invoices for about, I think, $260,000 that nobody saw coming. The invoices came after the fiscal year. This college did receive the product, but the money was not rolled over in the budget. So I need to have some kind of cushion to make sure that those things are easily paid for once it comes in. Okay, so that's a recommendation. The Academic Senate, $400,000. Centennial Facilities Master Plan, $400,000. And then these other things are requests that have come in that would be one-time costs. So the accreditation support, $100,000. And then I'm not quite sure what this is, but
It's
like a scanner or something.
yeah, the Scantron. This is an improved Scantron survey survey creation, distribution, and evaluation software package by this Explorance group. It comes with recommendation from institutional research, the IEC people, and a variety of people who want quick surveys done other than the Survey Monkey thing and what have you. Sense and SESI, these are the two large nationwide institutional research surveys that are done to deal with all the things that they look at, from basic skills development all the way through completion, etc.
Okay. And then the next one is the one I referred to a little earlier, where the accounts payable staff is going to tell me how much money that we need to roll over, and we're just going to keep it in one cost center, and it's with me, instead of having it spread out across the budget where we're not able to track it as easily. It's also, so it's about $550,000, I'm guessing at this point, for the rollover of being attacked by a bug. It's a rollover for outstanding invoices. So we may get the product or the service by June 30th, but we don't get the bill until July 1st. We need to carry those dollars over so it's not taken out of the new fiscal year budget. Now, what I did not account for, but what I put down here, are claims and risk management, and I wish Chana had still been here. So we're looking at our workers' comp claims, and we're trying to close out as many of them as possible, because the longer it's open, the more costlier it is for the district. So this fiscal year, we've had a couple, I think 2 or 3, where we had what are called compromise and releases. So whoever we settle with, they close down the claim, and it keeps the district from having to pay for another 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever time period that claim is open. So it's to the benefit of the district if we do that. So what I'm trying to find out is whether or not we have any large ticket items that we want to try to do a compromise and release on. If not, it won't go in. That's why it's not here right now. Okay? And it actually saves quite a bit of money in the long run. All right, so Fund 41. This whole document is about Fund 1, the unrestricted dollars. Fund 41 are the dollars that we put aside for the facilities, capital projects, and any IT capital projects. So above, in that $11.2 million, we identified some money there, but there's still currently some money in Fund 41. We don't know exactly how much because they're doing the year-end closing, but we believe it's about $4.5 million.
So let me speak to that just for a couple minutes. Fund 41 was the infamous, and hopefully we won't have to say this again next year, but it was the infamous. I'll call it a slush fund, just because you guys will. I'll just beat you to the punch. It was where
We had a
all
much
of
more
the,
elegant term for it. but-
okay, good. It was where all of the excess monies were placed in several years past. What we're trying to do, and what we have done, is we really restored it to what it was originally supposed to be restored for, which was facilities and renovation projects funded by the district. And then we further disaggregated to fund technology projects. Lancer Point was funded out of Fund 41. We actually shifted $5.5 million of it over into, I think it's Fund 29 for capital appreciation or payoff for that lease purchase and a few other things. But it's now pure district. Now, when we do renovation projects on campus, we get money from 3 sources. One is scheduled maintenance. Ruben has sent and prepared to the state a $40 or $50 million deferred scheduled maintenance plan for the district.
5 years, over 50 million.
5 years, over 50 million. The extra money that $3.8 million deferred maintenance, that money is going to, when that comes in, Ruben will use that to begin to tick down his list. he can't use it for anything else other than what's on that list and has been pre-approved by the state. So that's one pot of money. That's mostly infrastructure kind of stuff and, you know, walkways and all kinds of stuff.
Air handling units, boilers, windows, we do asbestos abatement, renovations, major facility modifications to the infrastructure of the building.
Okay, so that's one pot. The second pot is a scheduled maintenance pot, right? I'm sorry, the second pot is Measure P, which is our bond money. We have roughly $5 million left in that pot. Last year, the board and the Measure P committee approved $11 million worth of projects. You see the construction outfits running around campus right now. Many of them are working on those $11 million worth of projects. And so what's left in Measure P now is about $4.5 to $5 million. We're gonna more or less sit on that for a year or so and kind of see how things settle in before we start going back to that small amount of money that's left. And then the third pot that's available and left is Fund 41, which is the district contribution to our remodeling. So one of the things that's been going on now for the last 3 months or so are the visioning sessions, where we've met with the various schools, we've met with student services, and out of those visioning sessions have come short-range facilities needs, mid-range facilities needs, and longer term. Now the mid-range and the longer term are going to be more or less folded into the Centennial Facilities Master Planning process, which is going to kick off next year in a very significant way. And that may or may not, depending on what the board decides, will lead us to a major bond initiative and our next Measure P and whatever that's going to be. And that'll be several $100 million. It'll be $300, $400 million. We might go out in one large chunk. We might go out in chunks of 100 million, 150. I'm not going to speak for the board. I have no idea what they're going to do, but we need to create the plan, and the plan is for the next 50, 60 years of the life of this institution. But so the question is, how do we fund the visioning session needs, okay? And the answer is we fund it out of the little remaining in Measure P, which is not much,
Right.
or we fund it out of the Fund 41, because we can't use any of the scheduled/deferred maintenance money.
No.
Okay, so the idea here is that I think Fund 41 is going to end with a balance of maybe $2.5 or $3 million, the current Fund 41. And so what Joe is recommending here is that we, out of our 11.2 million, we put in 3.1 million of that to bring Fund 41 up to a point where Ruben and Matthew have some operating capital to begin to tick off the visioning session requests of the faculty, because those have been very much faculty driven. And then we'll begin to address those from a facilities point of view, right?
Yeah.
And then the equipment money that Joe's got in here out of the 11, we have not had a significant infusion of equipment monies on this campus for a long time. I mean, many years. And now this would be an opportunity to take some of that 11.2 and put it into an equipment fund. And maybe we'll be able to use some money from the state as well. But that's what that's about. And then the technology piece that we're talking about here, this 900,000, is mostly for things like the wireless upgrades that we're constantly doing. One of my goals is to get the faculty wireless separated from the student wireless or the general campus wireless. Mac, throw out a few statistics about our growth real quick.
Internet usage is more than doubled in less than a year. And that's because we've put out some upgrades, and the more upgrades we put out, the more capacity it has to pump that traffic through. Students like to watch Netflix and YouTube between classes, that really.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of education behind that, so I'm not gonna knock it, but there is a
They have
load
time.
on the system. Separately, we really wanna put together upgrades to the system that also provision, prioritize faculty over guests that might be visiting the campus. That, you know, if somebody's in class and wants to show a video to their students, they should be prioritized higher than anybody else.
So,
Sorry, is it possible for the library and the classrooms to be prioritized?
The library,
Because we have needs in the classroom to have our students on Canvas while we're presenting.
the library has already been prioritized, that's been the bulk of our upgrades, that's really where you've seen
But the
double-
classrooms?
The classrooms are really spread out, so we're trying to be as surgical as we can in the upgrades. We look at the statistics and see where most of the use is, and we upgrade those areas. But at some point, we really have to go in with a sledgehammer and do a big upgrade because, you know, there's need everywhere.
so there's two things that become our highest priorities in the technology area. One is the robustness and reliability of the overall infrastructure, the servers, what have you. And kudos to Matthew and Mark and the other IT staff. I think we've seen a great improvement of that because the district's invested in that. We've got some good people down there. I would say down there because you guys are always in the basement. But anyway, we got some good people there. And the other thing is to make certain that faculty can do what they need to do, because nowadays, most faculty that I know of, when you go into their class, it's all about what's up on the screen. And of course, it's very frustrating. We heard this in the visioning sessions. Very frustrated when a faculty member is trying to pull something up and it takes 3 hours and 20 minutes to get there. So this money is designed to increase the robustness and the reliability and to separate out as much as possible the two. 405.
Yeah, there's some other upgrades in there, but that's
Yeah,
that's
and
really the
server
big one.
upgrades, yeah.
Okay, so last but not least is the very last chart. So snapshot of the above information related to Fund 1 and the estimated revenue and expenses. Bless you.
Thank you.
So estimated Fund 1 revenues, 4.3 million, unanticipated cost increases, a negative 3.3 million, shifting of 01 funds to reallocate, that's 3.8 million. And if that works out the way I think it's gonna work out, we still need to find only $510,000, which means I believe the cost of living will go up to the 1.7%, so we should balance out, if not, have a little more money. If it doesn't work out that way, I believe we will have a little more than the $753,000 to roll over into the next fiscal year budget.
And-
So
and
we
if-
should balance out.
I don't think we want to shift out $3.8 million.
Well, and I don't think we'll have to. Oh,
Okay.
you mean for all of the, you
Uh-huh.
mean,
Out of 01 unrestricted funds.
so tell me where you think we should get it.
I
So
just
here's-
think it's counterproductive for faculty and staff.
Yeah, and I would not,
I can hear why the administration would like to do it.
well,
But-
let me just say this, I don't think it's the best approach. I think our hands are tied. And I say that because the $11.2 million, and I've said this before, I get heartburn when we talk about using one-time dollars for ongoing costs.
Well, there are things on here that are one-time dollars
Mhm.
that we're
Well,
spending.
I tried to separate it, but if you see something, tell me.
So here's what Julie, I certainly understand where you're coming from, and our situation is we need to, within 3 weeks, have some kind of a tentative budget proposal to sit down with the board subcommittee and explain to them. And then they will be asked to approve the tentative budget. Then we've got, the collective we have got another 6-7 weeks through the summer, the remaining summer, to see how things firm up, what the numbers are going to be, and to make adjustments to that, if that's what we decide to do. The reality of our situation is that our costs have gone up kind of significantly, and our revenue hasn't, is not as much as we would want. It's only, it's only an additional $3 million or 3.2 million, whatever that number is, at the moment. It could be a little higher than that. We will hear the same thing from the managers on Monday that we just heard from you. We gotta find the money someplace else. We are planning at the moment, reserve-wise, to still go forward with our roughly 12,050,000, I think is the number that we have used for decades, for a long, long time, as the reserve. And then the contingency about 5 or 6 million to have that sort of $17, $18 million pot at the end of every year that rolls over. Of course, we know it's accrual versus cash, but at least on the balance sheet, that's how we're going to show it. Joe and I are going to sort of focus on that same number this year. We are suggesting, and we are suggesting that we plug another, was it 2 million into 2.5 million into reserves out of the 11.3 million. I'd like to see that happen. Whether the board decides that they want that to happen or not is up to them.
I understand you're not going to change it because of what I said, but I feel like it's my job to say it.
Okay, and I appreciate that, but I also want to say we might change it to some degree. But this is just the first shot over the bow. And the good news, if there is good news, is that we sunshine 2%, and we're going to try to give it. I don't know where the negotiation is going to go, but we put 2% in the budget, and we're half the COLA. Most districts aren't doing that. Many districts are fighting to give the COLA only. Some of them are going as high as 3.5%, because those people didn't get anything. I know the faculty is still doing what you're trying to do, and I understand that. But there's great news from a budget perspective in the aggregate from the state's point of view. The problem is Governor Brown doesn't really want to let go of a lot of it. And so what we have gotten, what our system has gotten, is the stabilization from Prop 98, the stabilization from the EPA, and a pretty small amount of extra money. Because the governor wants to save that for the wall of debt, he wants to do the rainy day fund, he wants to deal with STRS, and I think he wants his bullet train.
So,
Quick question, just relating to the funds like GASB and reserves. There's a rate of return on these, right?
It's interesting you bring that up. We had a very interesting conversation with the actuary about the GASB dollars, because there's $16 million, give or take, there. And if the board were, and we're doing an analysis on this, but if the board were willing to consider taking some amount of that 16 or 17 million, let's just pull a number, let's say $8 million, and lock that away into a vault, you can never touch it. We can then start earning money on that $8 million, 3%, 4%, whatever interest we can with conservative, and that money can be used to help self-fund the GASB allocation. Right now, we've got $16 million that is just sitting there, generating 0.5% at LACO, doing nothing. But the board's always wanted to have the option to pull it and use it for anything they needed to. But if you were to place it into an escrow account, all of it or some of it, you can then invest it, and you can then generate money to help self-fund your future obligations in that fund.
So, LA County gives us a 0.5% rate of return.
Some very, very low rate of return.
And their rate of return is probably somewhere between 0.5% and what PERS rates, right?
Yeah, well, they're making money on it, there's no doubt. Now, one of the things that we want to do once we swallow Lancer Point and get ourselves stable in that, the next step is to go what they call financially independent.
That's what I was just going to say.
And then once we're away from LACO, then we can manage our monies accordingly, and that will help us as well.
Because when we have so much in reserve funds that's unproductive, this actually becomes an argument for spending it.
Yeah, it does. So I think it's a direction that certainly staff will begin to talk to the board about in the next year or so. Because the truth of the matter is, we got to figure out ways to generate more income. Because our expenses are doing this, and our income is either doing this, or in some cases doing that, or just barely doing this. And it's that gap now that we're having a hard time funding because of, and it's not because anybody's living large, it's just because things are going up in ways that people just weren't anticipating. Or maybe they were anticipating, but this is,
Stop giving out stipends.
All right, so stay tuned, more to come. Anything else for the good of the group? Because I think we're supposed to be done 15 minutes ago.
I want to ask you a question, but I
Yes.
don't want to be.
We can, okay, there we go.
Yeah, tackle.
Secret question.
Hmm?
The secret question.
Super. All right.
They'll probably yell at me when I
So
answer
I
it,
guess
and I
the
don't wanna
meeting
be
is
yelled
adjourned.
at.
Thank you all very, very
Thank
much
you.
for being here.